drank some whiskey too, and I got hooked. What you gonna do? You gonna roll on, babe? Don't you roll so slow when the wheel don't turn. You won't roll anymore. So won't you roll on, babe? Don't you roll so slow when the wheel don't turn. You won't roll anymore. And I dreamt last night, oh, was dead. I saw an apron string all around her head. So won't you roll on, babe? Don't you roll so slow when the wheel don't turn. You won't roll anymore. Now I have that train when I wanna go for where you're bound. Well, I don't wanna know. So won't you roll on, babe? Don't you roll so slow when the wheel don't turn.
Hi, I'm Tom Putnam, I'm the director, producer, sometimes David Cross's hiking stand-in for The Dark Divide. If you don't know much about the film, it's based on a book and true story by Washington nature writer Robert Michael Pyle. And his book and our film is about the healing power of nature, the importance of nature in our lives, and our duty to help protect it. We were lucky enough to film in many of the real locations in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest where Dr. Pyle's story and his book took place. And We got to know that forest very well during our time there. So it's really exciting for me to be able to share this panel with you because it's a place that's become very important to me. You can currently see the Dark Divide in select theaters. Yes, in theaters, there are theaters open certain places, and get early access to watch it at home via virtual cinema at darkdividefilm.com. We're also partnered with a number of Washington state resorts for something we're calling the Dark Divide Staycation Getaway. You can learn more about that at darkdividefilm.com. And the movie will be available November 10th on Amazon, Apple TV, Google Play, and on demand everywhere. Please stick around after the panel where we're going to debut our Recreate Responsibly PSA. It's pretty cool. And before we get to the panel, we've got a special treat for you, a performance by one of the bands on our soundtrack, Giants in the Trees, with Chris Novoselic from Nirvana. It also includes a special guest appearance by Robert Michael Pyle, who David Cross plays in the movie. But before that, here's a quick look at the movie.
Let's dial back on you being so miserable.
I apologize, but my wife is
Alive. I'm alive. Go look for specimens. Get away from me for a while.
Well, I've been through an awful lot these last few years.
I don't know what happens next, but I'll be ready.
Hello, I'm Robert Michael Pyle, author of the book Where Bigfoot Walks, Crossing the Dark Divide. I'm here with Giants in the Trees from the soundtrack of the new motion picture, The Dark Divide, to celebrate the movie, the great wildland from which it takes its name, and also the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, where it lies. The GP is one of the great gems of our public lands. It's a rich mixture of biodiversity and human lore and lifeways. Every time I go up there, I burst into spontaneous song. I can't help it. Up in the wild GP, where the Bigfoot and butterflies be. And it goes from there, I know not where. But we're here today to hear some real music. And to get there, I'm going to give you for a moment to Chris Novoselic.
Thank you, Dr. Pyle. Bob, I am Chris Novoselic, and we are Giants in the Trees, and we're delighted to be part of the music for The Dark Divide. One of my favorite films. Our music is inspired by the place where we live in Southwest Washington State on the North Shore of the Columbia River. And I hope you can spot the inspiration in our music. I'm going to read a passage about the Gifford Pinchot, or Mount Adams, from Justice William O. Douglas. If our wilderness areas are preserved, every person will have a better chance to maintain their freedom by allowing their idiosyncrasies to flower under the influence of the wonders of the wilderness.
Thank you, Chris. Perfectly said. And now, with their stunning song, Sasquatch, I bring you my dear friends and homies, Chris Novoselic, Jillian Ray, Jennifer Johnson, Ray Prestegard, and Eric Friend, the Giants in the Trees.
That was super cool. Giants in the Trees, everybody. That was cool, except for the like 5 seconds of terror when I thought Bob was going to be singing for a few minutes. Sorry, Bob. What you may not know is Bob and the members of the band also have another band together called Butterfly Launches from Sparpole. So you might want to check them out too. It's pretty cool. So making this film, we definitely explore the mystery of Sasquatch and Bigfoot. There's a lot people don't know about our giant furry friend. But to find out what we do know about the Gifford Pinchot, we have an amazing panel assembled. And to introduce the participants and moderate, I'd like to introduce the talented and mindful Kimberly Guerrero. Hey, Kimberly.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, everyone.
In addition to playing the role of Teresa in the film, Kimberly is a native Oklahoman with affiliations with the Colville, Salish Kootenai, I hope I pronounced that right, and Cherokee tribes. And she's also an actress with some amazing credits, Longmire, Grey's Anatomy, Seinfeld, and somehow has played the real-life Chief Wilma Mankiller in 2 films, including Julie Taymor's The Gloria, which it just came out on Amazon, and I saw, and you were amazing in it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
So how are you feeling about moderating this?
I'm so excited because, as you said, it's kind of confusing, but you know, I was born and raised in Oklahoma, but I'm tribally enrolled right there in Washington State. So I've always been, you know, smitten with the Cascades and with our forests in Washington and the Columbia River. So, you know, it's just, I'm as excited. I'm probably one of the most excited people to be a part of this panel because I get to learn.
Moderating this. Okay, I'm gonna sign off and hand it off to you, and I will be watching and eating some pad thai and enjoying whatever I'm gonna learn about the many views and the future of the GP. Thanks for doing this, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. Well, once again, everyone, welcome. I would just like to take a communal breath together in lieu of a prayer. But for those of you that have a certain faith, let's just all take a breath together in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just let everything go with the day. Just get prepared to spend some time together talking about these beautiful spaces that nourish us so much and the healing that we get from them. And today there's an extraordinary group of people that have been brought together to help us understand where we've been in regards to our natural spaces, where we are now, and where we'd like to go. And so we have 5 incredible folks with us. I'm just going to give a quick introduction of each of them. First is Taylor Aldrich, who has an education in biology and environmental science. Taylor is the Director of Natural Resources for the Cowlitz Indian Tribe, where he oversees a staff of 13 professionals. His department plans and implements technical programs primarily related to restoration of the tribe's homeland within southwestern Washington state. He served on many boards and committees throughout the region, including those tied to salmon recovery, cultural awareness, and continuity and economic development. He's also the chair of the Pinchot Partners, a nonprofit organization that deals with the health of the Gifford Pinchot National Forest and the economic well-being of the local communities. Welcome, Taylor. So glad to have you with us. Make sure you're unmuted so we can hear you. Give us a shout out, Taylor. I see the mouth moving. It's getting there. I'm going to keep going. We're going to get back to you. And by the time we get back to you, I'm going to be able to hear you. Okay. Next up is Molly Whitney, who is the executive director of the Cascade Forest Conservancy, where she stewards their mission to protect and sustain forests, streams, wildlife, and communities in the heart of the Cascades. She's educated in environmental science with a focus on water, and she previously worked with Water Watch of Oregon and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation's Columbia Basin Water Transactions Program. Welcome, Molly.
Hi, nice to be here.
Oh, so good to have you. And next up is Jared Stewart. He's the Strategic Communications Manager for Mount St. Helens Institute, where he promotes the organization's mission to connect people of all ages to the natural world through education and appreciation of the Pacific Northwest's youngest and most active volcano. After stints working in communication for several Seattle startups and behemoths, Jared opted to pursue a dream of hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, and he has dedicated his work to the outdoors ever since. Jared, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So good to have you. Next is Tracy Cowlitz with the United States Forest Service, currently serving as the Community Engagement Staff Officer of the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, overseeing sustainable recreation, heritage, tribal relations, special uses, partnerships, and public affairs. She is educated in environmental science and law and previously worked as a national litigation coordinator for the Forest Service. And as an environmental consultant, she located and documented every abandoned mine in the Hia and the Lincoln National Forests. Tracy, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Same here. Okay, so do we have Taylor? Taylor, can we hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I had to do some stuff here. Sometimes it stops on Zoom.
Oh, I know. This is the world we live in now. So what's kind of exciting about this is that, again, we're going to kind of just start with a big macro lens and then go into where we are and then kind of your vision for the future. So we're going to first kind of give a lay of the land, the history. And so Taylor, I'm going to start with you. What lives in the forest? What are the animals and the plants? You know, our people, we don't see it as nature. We see it as relatives, right? There are relatives out there. So talk a little bit about the Cowlitz people's historical relationship to the land and everything that's on in the land and the water.
Well, the Gifford Pinchot wasn't called the Gifford Pinchot historically, but it's spiritual to us. It grows to, it's our food. It's our material things. We survived off of it for thousands of years. It was a place of spiritual gathering, a place for spirit quests. It was dynamic, very mosaic of different habitats and different areas that are very meaningful to us that, I could talk for days on. Given the time, the highlights are the iconic mountains of Mount St. Helens, which we call Lawalatla, and that's a very spiritual place for us, as well as Mount Adams and Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier to us is Tacoma, and Mount Adams is Pato, and the rivers that flow from them. The Lewis River, which is to us is the Kathleen, and the Cowlitz River, which is basically the same, like Cowlick. Different ways. I'm not perfect at our language or anything, but we always hold that very dear to us in regards to just every facet of our lifestyle and our harvest of the products that are on the forest, the animals. There's a plethora. I can go on for days, but one of the primary ones is salmon. So.
Yeah, that's one of the neat things about this conversation is that hopefully we can introduce each other and our audience with all of you, and then they can dive in deeper, find out more about you through this panel and really create the conversation and really discuss that relationship. So thank you so much, Taylor, for that. We're going to be circling back to you. Molly, what makes, and this is an open question for anybody, what makes this forest and the Cascade so special? And within that, can you talk a little bit about the old growth and Lost Creek?
For sure, yeah. I think what makes the GP, the Gifford Pinchot, so special is that there's something new around every corner. We have the west side and the east side, so there's just so much variance in the GP because it's over such a large landscape. You have an active volcano, Mount St. Helens there that had erupted and changed the landscape, and you have Mount Adams, and then go up to the base of Mount Rainier, and then it goes all the way down to the gorge area. So it's just such a large, beautiful landscape. And one of those areas that I think can really catch people's attention and capture that magic is the Lost Creek area, where you can find huge trees. I think that there are red cedars that are over like 9 feet in diameter, and Douglas firs up to 8.5 feet. It's just, they're humongous. And just when you're next to them, it's just awe-inspiring. And to be in a place to see something of that size, just to be in the midst of it all, and the smells and the feel, there's just nothing like it. I think it's magical. That's the best way to put it.
I agree. And, it's interesting because this is all about relationship, isn't it? And we have relationships with others as human beings, but I'm sure each of you have found you can have very deep relationships with trees, with a river, with a rock, and it remembers you. I always say the land remembers even when we forget. And I just think, especially those old growth places, I mean, they can tell us a lot, not just about themselves, but ourselves and where we are right now. So thank you.
Yeah, the temporal scale of places like that is just amazing.
Right. It spans us as human beings, definitely. So Tracy, I have a question for you. And I do not know this, so I'm excited about finding what this is. What is the difference between a national forest versus a national park or other public lands?
Well, thanks for the question. And a lot of people don't know, so you're definitely not alone. The good news is they're all your public lands. This was a great idea that was started, over 100 years ago as the country was kind of getting formed. But the fundamental difference is the laws that created a national park versus a national forest are different in what they allow people to do on them, and people being permitted typically by the government. And so the national forests have been called at times land of many uses. They were originally in the Organic Act that created the National Forest Reserves, set aside for purposes of outdoor recreation, range, timber, water, and minerals. Whereas national forests are typically are typically set aside to preserve and interpret for recreation purposes, to preserve cultural history and other types of visitor management and history. So it's fundamentally what the laws that designated these spaces permit people to do and continue to do moving forward.
Awesome. That's so, it's like, finally, I know what that means now.
Right. And I would just also add that, on national forest, it's not everything on every acre, which is what makes having a part in stewarding and managing national forests very interesting, never a dull moment, and challenging. And we'll get into some of that in terms of how we do that these days in a little bit.
Awesome. And I love that word stewardship, because I know I was raised with that concept of being a steward of the land and all life that lives on it. So I appreciate you bringing up that word. So Jared, you have a great relationship with Mount St. Helens. Can you tell us a little bit about how the eruption affected the area?
Yeah, so I mean, there's still eruptions happening from time to time, so it's definitely a continuing thing. But I think most people think of the 1980 eruption when we talk about it. And I mean, it changed the area dramatically. It, destroyed a lot and left a lot of room for basically the science lab that we have now. And yeah, it's an amazing place. I don't think there's really anywhere like it, on the planet where we can kind of study these things. And it's, illuminated a lot about volcanology. A lot of what we know about modern volcanology comes from that. But, those eruptions have been going on since, way before, time immemorial. So, and maybe Taylor can add a little bit about that.
Taylor, do we have stories from, I know, up my way we do, but we
have plenty of folklore stories. I mean, there's plethora. I mean, I can talk all day, but yes, it is dynamic, and the stories of basically, such as Mount Hood and Mount Adams are actually individuals and Mount Hood and is tied to that, and kind of like a familial thing, such as two people fighting over a woman, and those mountains are the people, and they're fighting over a woman, and eventually, drama escalates, and the mountain goes off, and those sorts of things, and creating a bridge across the Columbia River at the Bridge of the Gods, and those sorts of folklore runs really deep with us.
Yeah. And those stories help us again to stay connected, right, to the past, and kind of understand, because there's always a deeper meaning there. Definitely a deeper meaning there. So I'm going to turn it now to kind of how this intersection with the Dark Divide, because that happened around the time of the Timber Wars, the 90s. And so I want to just talk a little bit about that to help us understand, kind of where we are today. Tracy, Mary, whoever wants to jump in, what were some of the prevailing global thoughts about forests prior to the 1990s around it? I mean, as a resource versus relationship, so to speak.
Well, in our communities that depend on the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, a lot of folks were making their living in the forestry industry. We had a very active group of people doing logging, and that was the livelihood of many of the people that lived there. And if it wasn't the livelihood of the people that lived there to do the logging, there were the schools and businesses that supported those families that did live there. So it was a way of life. It's their lifestyle. The Gifford Pinchot and the lands that surround that were very important to them, to protect them and to take care of them, because their livelihoods depended on it. Right. And Mary Kay, that ties back to exactly what Taylor was saying, because it's that same kind of relationship. Yeah, his is many years ago. Ours is more recent in his world, but and there's still that give and take of human beings and nature. And still many generations. I mean, right now, people that live there because their parents lived there, because their parents lived there, and many generations ago. I think one could say you could get hooked on living in that environment because it is so beautiful and magical. Oh, absolutely. And Tracy, can you tell us a little bit about like the state of the forest, back then, the disagreements, and then how that's affected policy today?
Well, I'll do my best. The forest went from we cut a lot of timber on the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, driven by really the needs of a growing nation, and even dating back from folks coming back from the soldiers coming back from World War II. There was a housing boom all over the country, and there was a great need for wood. And so the Gifford Pinchot and other forests in the Northwest and other places in the country were a supplier of that wood, and thought that they were doing it in a sustainable way because the timber that was cut was then replanted. So it was reforested into, the plantations essentially of the future. But what was missing in that equation was the evaluation of what an old growth ecosystem does and the life and species that it supports. And that was probably the primary shift when people started to understand, when scientists started to understand and study and evaluate species like the northern spotted owl and salmon species that really depended on clear streams that were functioning and functioning well, and really species like the owl that depended on old growth, very old ecosystems, that created this hinge point. Once the northern spotted owl was listed as a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act, the forest went from producing 300 million board feet of timber per year to 0 in the space of 5 years. And I would say, for different reasons, neither one was sustainable. Neither of those numbers was sustainable. So the shift now, as the Clinton administration started the Northwest Forest Plan, which tried to strike a balance between the economic side and the social side, but also the ecology and the species, tried to get people to work together, continue to create economic opportunities for communities that were hit very hard, as Mary Kay touched on. And so now moving forward, the pendulum is swinging back, but we are working in a different way with lots of different interests to decide how we provide opportunities, but also and provide the resources, the timber resource, but also restore the ecosystems.
So there's a balanced approach,
yes,
like and a holistic, collaborative approach, right?
And not only here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Not only here, but in Oregon and in many of the other communities across the Pacific Northwest faced similar fates. Some towns became ghost towns. Some towns turned to other means of support. Tourism is one of the ways that they have found to support themselves, because people want to have what is there and they want to recreate, and we'll talk about that in a while. Yeah. But this isn't just happened on the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. This is a Pacific Northwest, whether you're in Oregon or Idaho, Washington State, this really did impact the livelihood of people, and people left our small towns. And that's where the war part comes in.
Right. And in some ways it does tie to the explosion, because after we were just talking about before we got on about devastation and how nature does that, it renews itself. It's kind of explosive and disruptive, but then there's a renewal that comes and we learn. And to that point, Molly, I'm going to turn to you and talk to us a little bit about, like, where is forest management stewardship now? I mean, there's so much, like you work with the beaver introduction, correct? And just like what's going on with the CFC and what are you all doing?
Yeah, the Cascade Forest Conservancy is involved in so many different types of projects on the policy and advocacy side and science stewardship restoration, even getting people kind of citizen science work and young friends of the forest, getting adults and youth alike out and hands-on working on all of our projects. So we try to work, on just a plethora of different approaches for protection and restoration. But yeah, beaver reintroductions is something that we're working on, which is super exciting. They're nuisance beavers that are all over in areas damming up people's private property, or the Washington Department of Transportation. They realize that these beavers can't be where they are, and unfortunately that means that they often could die or be killed, but we try to give them a new opportunity in the GP where they have been, the populations have been decimated over many years because they've been captured, and we're trying to reintroduce them into these areas to restore aquatic ecosystems. And so we're reintroducing these beavers, and they're just to great effects. And I think that just to see how the landscape can change when you reintroduce these natural, these native species back into the area. It's awesome.
Does the resilience shock you?
It's, I think it's something that you see over time, and you see how the ecosystems can come back, that ecosystems are resilient. And if you give them a chance to restore and to go back to the way that they can be without mismanagement or interference or all these different things that have played a part on particular in just different areas. Just amazing to see what can happen. So it's really nice.
To that point, can you tell me about the Pinchot Partners?
Well, there's two collaboratives actually on in the Gifford Pinchot. The Pinchot Partners, which Taylor is the board chair of, and then the South Gifford Pinchot Collaborative. And so both of these collaborative groups are ones that we participate in and we're co-founders of. And it's kind of what Tracy and Mary Kay were talking about, of bringing all the people in the community together so we can try to find that collaborative conversation to all come and see each other's point of views, state our opinions and why we want certain things to happen, why we're advocating for certain things, listen to others and why they're advocating that, and try to find that middle ground so that things further down the road aren't as contentious as we saw, maybe in those early years, which we were referencing earlier, or where you see that tension in the movie.
Because there's that lack of communication. right?
I think, there's still tensions. I mean, I think everybody wants something different. And so I'm not going to say that it's like, that it becomes perfect, but I think that having that space and that conversation makes me, I can just say for myself, it makes me realize why people are coming at things from the way they are. And if you can come from something from a divisive or a different point of view, but as long as you can kind of try to see why someone's saying something or where they're coming from or how it's impacted their life personally, then you can kind of see why you're in the situation you're in or why someone's advocating. And I think that that's really important.
That's really beautiful. And just how you all are all collaborating to work together. Taylor, that's got to be, I mean, I can't be that much further behind you in age, or we're going to be right there together. It's like there was, for a long time, nobody asked us about anything, right? How does that feel to be able to really partner with, folks out there to help, preserve and love and steward this land?
I think that's one of the most valuable things that I do. It engages me personally, as well as the Cowlitz tribe, with the local community and different interests. And expressing, the need to care for the land and expressing what's important to not only to us, but to the entire region. We survived on this landscape for a millennia, and we managed the forest and through traditional ecological knowledge. And we were active managers for centuries and trying to bring that component to the local communities, to the diverse groups, which can be challenging at times. But, we're, like the Pinchot Partners, is a consensus-based organization. And I think we've been around long enough as an organization to really understand each other now. And we're really working and really engaging with the Forest Service to bring all sorts of different values, not only the tribes, but the local communities, what we need now and what we need for the future to try to make everything work for us.
I love what you're saying about that, because you're talking about what we need for the future. And it does feel like there is this harmony that wasn't there before, and this, building these bridges. In light of that, this is an open question to anybody. Talk to me about fire mitigation and climate change and what you're seeing, and how we can, help you do what you do and help us understand how to move forward, how to face this together.
Well, I think that the protection and conservation of our forests and ecosystems is the best start to mitigate for the impacts of fire. And so I think that's something that the Cascade Forest Conservancy really definitely strives to do, is to protect these ecosystems so they can be natural, balanced, wild places that they should be.
Yeah. You okay?
Well, I think that just having the knowledge that we have and the desire that people have to learn about it, I think it's a lot of education that needs to take place. I think we aren't born instinctively knowing these things sometimes. And so I think the education component is huge for a new crop of people that are discovering their outdoors.
Yeah, beautifully said. Tracy?
I would say that learning to live with fire in a couple different ways is going to be really important moving forward. I say that the restoration to create more resilience to fire. I mean, the Forest Service has done a really good job for much of its history in putting out every fire it saw by 10 o'clock the next day. I mean, that was the policy. And we're working on shifting that to managing fire for resource benefit where it's appropriate. It's not going to be appropriate if it's right next to a community, but it is going to be appropriate perhaps if it's in a wilderness where fire has historically been on the landscape. If we can do it in a way that is managed, it's contained. But so there's no let burn. We would not just let something burn, but we watch and monitor and protect resources like historic cabins or an important watershed. in order to reintroduce that fire on the landscape. And as humans, what we can do in terms of fire is be really, really careful about fire in the forest. I mean, still about 90 plus, very, very high percentage of fire is caused by humans, whether it's a campfire that's not put out appropriately, a careless cigarette butt thrown out the window of a car, chains dragging on a trailer. All of these things are still really frequent causes of fires. And to the extent that we can minimize the amount of fire that we introduce in uncontrolled ways, that's helpful.
That's awesome. That's a good bridge to our next topic too, because our next topic is recreating responsibly. And Jared, I'm going to turn to you because you went on a trek to retrace some of the steps taken by Dr. Robert Pyle.
I did. It was awesome. Yeah.
And I think we have a clip from that. We have tape from that we can watch.
Hey, this is Jared. I just came down off Juniper Ridge. It's my first day out here hiking the Dark Divide, following in Dr. Pyle's footsteps, reading his book. There were some great views of mountains. St. Helens, Adams, and Rainier were all viewable from this one vista. A lot of ups and downs, literally and figuratively. Steep ascents and descents. I'm camped here under the base of Dark Mountain, as you can see. Camped in this lovely meadow. There's my tent. I was warned that there wouldn't be a lot of water here. I thought I brought enough.
Not many chances for fresh water between here and the gorge.
But I didn't, and I ran out, and it was getting pretty dicey, but I finally found some, and I drank it up, and it was a real morale booster.
Pace yourself with that water.
Highly recommend the hike. Just bring lots of water and be ready to take your time.
Jared, oh
Yes.
my goodness. Talk to us about that. Like, I want to know, how did you stay safe? How bad was your water scarcity scare?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I'm a fairly experienced outdoors person. I know how to stay safe. You know, I got the bear bag and I hang it, and I'm loud so that I don't sneak up on any bears and scare them. And yeah, the water scare, it's pretty bad. I'm a little embarrassed by it because, you know, even Dr. Pyle emailed me and he's like, I heard you're going to copy, you know, go on this trip that I did. Make sure you bring lots of water. So I'm going up Juniper Ridge, and it's bare and it's hot, and I brought like twice as much water as I usually do, but I got a late start. I had to move aside for a lot of people. It was very popular that day, so I didn't make good time. And so I ran pretty low. I found like a very small stream and managed to get some, and I finally made it to Quartz Creek, and it was an embarrassment of riches. I sat at the creek with my feet in the water, and I just drank, and it was great. So really makes you appreciate things. But yeah, the whole trip was great. There were trails I walked on that I don't think anybody had been on this year. And yeah, it was just gorgeous, and it was really nice to get out there, especially after watching the film, because I had plans to travel out of the state during that time, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is it. This is perfect.
Wow. What a gift. What an adventure. Like a life-changing adventure, right? Can you tell us a little bit about the role that Mount St. Helens Institute plays in contributing to that positive recreation experience for people?
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about opening up to do guided programs again in the future. And so we're having a lot of conversations about how to recreate responsibly as we move into this, obviously with like COVID and things. And I followed those guidelines. I did see other people out there, I had my mask up when we crossed the trail, and, you bring your hand sanitizer out there because you have it anyway, because, you can't wash your hands in the woods very easily. And so, we're crafting those policies, and we're, doing that. And also, we have a great volunteer program, and a lot of our volunteers are just, excellent stewards, and they go out and they, spread those messages, about, taking care of the land, making sure we're being good stewards and kind and appropriate.
Yeah.
I have to give Mount St. Helens Institute a shout out right now, because if you hike up Mount St. Helens, or if you visit our visitor center when it's open at Johnston Ridge Observatory, you are as likely to run into a volunteer for Mount St. Helens Institute as you are a Forest Service employee. They're just an awesome partner. The forest is blessed with so many awesome partners, including the organizations represented by everyone on this call, everyone on this panel. Yeah. But in terms of how the Institute supports, there's really a lot you guys do to help the public experience the forest.
Awesome.
That's nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'd like to jump in and talk about Recreate Responsibly, which is a huge coalition of folks that came together this year as we recognize many people were going outdoors where it was safer than being indoors, and many places and events weren't happening. We saw a new flux of people going out and enjoying there, but at the same time, some of these folks hadn't been raised with the same stewardship ideas that or maybe our families before us were. So this really starts before they leave home. It starts with the planning session of knowing where you're going, knowing what the rules are, knowing what permits are needed. Recreating responsibly is more than just taking care of the land, which is really part and parcel of the whole thing, is leaving no trace and making sure you don't leave your footprints and your impact. But in order to do that, if you get to a trailhead and it's crowded and there's no place to park and there's too many people there, you need to have a backup plan, have a second place you want to go to, come back another day, go in the middle of the week. There's lots of things to think about and recreating responsibly that have to do with before you ever get in your car or your bicycle and driving up to those places. Think about all the impacts that you have and making sure that you minimize those.
And always bring the 10 essentials.
And the 10.
Great. So we're going to do that. So we're on a good track here. And Mary Kay, thank you so much for starting us off. So tell me about the 10 essentials. And I would love to hear from each of you. If you could give our audience like a couple of takeaways of how to recreate responsibly, that would be fantastic.
Well, I certainly don't have the 10 essentials memorized, and I should be ashamed. But I know, yeah, water, your flashlight, all the things you take. Yeah, you can Google it. It's very simple. And we also have like a checklist on our website if you're climbing the mountain about things you'll need in those specific things. Check the weather conditions before you go out. We have our climbing conditions on our website, you know, all
And
very
sometimes
important
cell
things.
phones don't work.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, your cell phone.
I have to chime in and say cell phones do not work in most places once you get it off the road or into the forest. And by the way, neither do GPS maps. Don't try to Google where you want to go in the forest because it could take you on some. I mean, we have so many stories of people taking these really rough back roads, getting stuck, getting lost, it getting dark, they having to spend the night, overnight, search and rescue having to come out and find them. Know where you're going and make sure you're not relying on your phone or Google Maps or Waze or any of the directional apps to get you there. Call and talk to one of our handy dandy frontliners that are happy to answer your questions. They're a wealth of resources and they are, you know, even in COVID times, still answering the phone. And, you know, so definitely the directions. And if we're talking about recreation, if I can just be really real for a minute, we need to talk about human waste and know what to do with it because you might get stuck without a restroom easily available to you. So there's something called a wag bag where you can pack it out with you or bring a little shovel and a little toilet kit. There's little videos on this, which is you know, some TP, bury it. So these are the things that we hear about all the time. I think recreationists who, I think if there's kind of a group of people who just don't know, and then there's a group of people who know better, but they do it anyway. So this year, as you point out, there's been so many new recreationists out in the forest that I like to give people the benefit of the doubt that they just don't know. You know, I mean, well, I'll just throw this orange peel because it's natural and it will biodegrade. It will biodegrade in 10 years. And so if everybody's doing that, then we have a forest floor that's covered in orange peel that everybody can see. And, you know, it's kind of a vicious cycle. If you see it, you think, oh, it's okay, they did it, I'll do it. So same with like scratching your name on a rock or writing, you know, scratching something into a tree. That's leaving a trace. Like, let's leave no trace. There's endless examples.
Yes, thank you. That's fantastic. Molly and Taylor, how do we recreate responsibly?
Well, with the changing of the weather, I think it's also something to realize that when you're going out to the GP, there's going to be snow in a lot of areas that there might not have been earlier this season. And that means roads are going to be closed. You're just going to be in a different climate. So just make sure that you know, you are aware of what storms are coming in, what seasonality, can you access something, just so you're safe. I mean, it's getting cold these days, so just know what you're getting into.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think Tracy mentioned it is basically it's the trash that people come bring. And, you know, I've spoken to another organization called the Gifford Pinchot Trash Force. And they go out and actually a bunch of volunteers, which some of the members of the Pinchot Partners participate in, going out and cleaning up after, you know, the recreationalists, you know, folks out there camping or whatnot, you know, they have been there. So, and there's mountains of trash that they're getting, tons of trash. And I think that's the biggest message that people need to know is, take it out, you know, bring your garbage out because it's a big problem that has got a lot of people concerned in the local communities around Randall and Packwood and as well as other areas. So, you know, that's the big thing. And it's important to me too, because I go up there camping a lot and I don't like running into, you know, somebody's garbage pile, and you know, when I'm trying to enjoy nature.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's Molly, did you have it?
Me?
Yeah. Oh, did anybody? Okay. So we're going to shift now to like one of the things that I'm most excited to hear from each of you, because you're out there every day living it, loving it, you're passionate about it. What are some of the things right now? What are those cutting edge things within, you know, what you're doing or within science or within just management and stewardship that you're really excited about? That what are we learning new about these ecosystems you're talking about, or the resilience? Like, what's kind of most exciting you right now, even in the face of climate change and how everything's, what's kind of some hopeful takeaways that we can learn from you?
I just want to say a little bit about the mountain goat population. It's booming right now. We were lucky enough to participate in the mountain goat survey, which is put on through the Cowlitz tribe, and I'm so excited about it. Sorry, Taylor, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, that's great. Continue on.
They have returned after, the devastation, or sorry, not devastation, but the area was cleared in the Mount Margaret and around the volcano, and it cleared the way for mountain goats to return. They really like that type of environment. And so, and that's, the whole period since the 1980 eruption, we've seen booms and busts of populations in the blast zone. And yeah, it really is a story of, hope and renewal. And I think about that a lot when I'm, having a tough day in the modern environment.
I always think of Mount St. Helens as evolution on fast forward. I mean, you can practically stand there and watch it change. It's so dynamic. It's so interesting. And it's just really a story of growth. And I think about both on Mount St. Helens as well as the rest of the forest. So the story that created the landscape that we see happened 40 years ago. And so what are we doing collectively, not just the Forest Service, but the Forest Service and all of our partners doing together to make it relevant for the next generation of stewards? How are we inviting people in an inclusive way to learn about the forest, to love the forest, to have not just and who want to care for the forest, and have not just the Forest Service staff, but the visitors and the partner organizations reflect the makeup of the American public. Because, it's pretty white, and that's okay, but it's not very inclusive. And so how do we reach out to underserved communities, to gather everyone in a way that that allows everybody to share where we are and create that next generation of stewards?
I love that.
And I think that there is a challenge that goes on because of that, and because our communities who remember, when you think of Packwood and Randall and Morton, they're pretty small rural communities with not a lot of infrastructure to take care of their residents, let alone thousands of people that are coming in to recreate. So their infrastructure suffers, and that's something that we don't have resources for. They're happy to be making a living in their small businesses, but trying to take care of these restroom needs and showers and laundry facilities, they don't exist in these small towns. For people to recreate and have a good experience and come back, which is what we ultimately want them to do, to enjoy their forests, we have to provide what they need. And I think that's a real challenge. I don't know that we've done it. I think that we recognize that there's a need there.
Oh, beautiful. Molly.
Yeah. So I think that something that CFC is doing is we have wildlife cameras throughout the forest. And I think that something that I just find so inspiring every single time is to see what pops up on these cameras. We leave them out over a year and then we go collect them. And just to see all the animals and the biodiversity that's in this forest, and, a bear rubbing up against a tree, or beavers, or a fisher or marten, and just what have you. I mean, that's just amazing. And, we think about humans enjoying this area, but there's just so many animals, plants, wildlife, fungi in this area. It's just such a complex system. Yeah. But in the resilience that's in this forest because of that, You know, I think that that's just one of the coolest things.
Oh,
you never know what animal you're going to see when you go out hiking.
Is there a place where people can see some of the, do you ever amalgamate those videos so folks can?
You know, we're starting to share more of them on our Instagram and Facebook page, especially when we get some good ones. We're partnering with Oregon State right now, Oregon State University, on getting some of that footage out. So as we get some of those good pictures, we'll definitely be posting more of them.
Oh yeah, I think TikTok is ready for some of that.
Oh, I think so too. Sure. We might need to start an account.
Right, definitely. Taylor, what are your thoughts?
You know,
what I'm excited about.
For the future, I think there's a lot of opportunity. To serve the local community. For the Cowlitz tribe is to seek to get back more diversity and more abundance of that diversity in the future. As Tracy mentioned earlier, I mean, the forest was being managed as a plantation or basically a farm for so much time. And so now we have these large tracts of reforested areas where they were expecting to now harvest of a lot of monoculture. I think we need to do a lot more thinning in the forests, which would provide local resources, and then go to the drawing board on how do we want to treat these areas in the future, get more diversity, get more early habitat types, get that mosaic, as I mentioned earlier, and not have such just a vast pockets of monoculture, which that basically reduces that species diversity and abundance. And I think that there's opportunity for us to work together to do all this and try to maintain a vibrant local economy surrounding the Gifford Pinchot National Forest.
Oh, I love this. I grew up, as I said, in Oklahoma, and there was somebody like a teacher or something, and she we were talking about building community and collaboration. And she had this three-step thing. It was get to know, get to like, get to love. And it's like I hear that repeated over and over with this education of getting people out into the forest and getting to know it, and then they get to like it, and they want to go, and then they get to love it. And when you love it, then you're going to take care of it. And it seems like such a big part of what we've been talking about. And so I want to finish up. We have a beautiful video that talks about recreating responsibly, but I want to finish up with each of you, just being able to share, like, how can we get to know more about what you do? Where can we find you on the internet or on Facebook or wherever? Just kind of talk to us about how we can get involved and take action in the area that you're passionate about and you're giving your life to.
I want to go first.
Go first, Mary Kay.
The Washington Tourism Alliance has a very exciting program we've just rolled out. In response to COVID, we are asking people to stay local, to stay in their own areas, in their own regions, especially those areas that aren't into phase 3 yet. So we've rolled out a new program and a passport program for each region. It's called Explore Your Backyard. So they can go to experiencewa.com, experiencewashington.com will get you there, and find this passport program, and you actually can get prizes and gifts if you go to all the places in your neighborhood. And we picked out some of the more hidden away places, not the most obvious ones. So you probably won't find Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier because we think people figured that out. But these are some other ideas of some local parks and local places to go visit. And so experiencewad.com is a great place to go for more information.
Oh, I'm hearing that we can get a screener of the movie. The Dark Divide is one of the gifts. That's fun. I'm so all about those passports. Like, I want to be a kid in Washington.
I know. Yeah, everybody loves that.
I know. Tracy, how can we get in touch with you and find out what you're doing?
Oh my gosh. Well, we, of course, have a Facebook page, and we also have a Twitter account. You could follow us there. I really want to encourage folks, if you are interested in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, some of the easiest and best ways, if you're local, to work with the forest are to work with our partners. So Mount St. Helens Institute, the Washington Trails Association, Pacific Crest Trail Association, I don't want to inadvertently leave anyone out, but we work with volunteer organizations all the time, and they're awesome. And that's where the on the ground work happens in a way that's not being a Forest Service employee, is with our partner groups primarily. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that right now, or I should say starting October 30th through November 9th, the Forest Service in Region 6, so that's Oregon and Washington, and I believe California as well, Region 5, will be advertising for our seasonal jobs. So if you want to work as a seasonal employee in timber, in recreation, in interpretation, in fish, biobotany, all of our seasonal jobs for the summer of 2021 will be advertised on USA Jobs from, let's see, October 30th through November 9th. And so seasonal jobs are roughly around 6 months or so. And it's a great way to get to know the forest. I should have mentioned firefighters are also hired. So so please go to our website, and there's a link to all the jobs that are offered on the Gifford Pinchot, but there's many more available on other forests in Oregon, Washington, and California. They'll be advertised at the same
Tracy,
time.
what's that again?
What's that?
What's that website again?
It's let's see, fs.usda.gov/Gifford Pinchot. And then there's a link on the front page.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Taylor, I get this all the time. Like so many non-native folks want to get involved and interact with native people. How can they get, connect with you all and what you're doing there?
Well, you periodically check out our website, same as Tracy, and we have a Facebook page. So just Google search Cowlitz Indian Tribe, and same with Facebook page. And we post a lot of information, a lot of other stuff beside Gifford Pinchot or items, but you can get to know the tribe that way. Pinchot Partners, go to www.pinchotpartners.org. To find out more on the collaboration and networking that we do. Personally, I try to hide a little bit because I'm so busy. I'm so many boards and committees and activities that I do. So I try to limit myself in my exposure so I can do what I do.
Because you like to be out in the woods. You just told us, with no trash.
And now when I'm personally recreating out in the woods or going out there, not just to recreate, but to harvest huckleberries and other items, I don't want to be found. So I
was about to say, you're going to hide those huckleberry stashes. I know that. We all do. Thank you so much, Taylor. Molly, how can we find you and all the amazing things you're involved with?
Yeah, cascadeforest.org is our website, and we're really active on Facebook and Instagram, so you can find us there. We also, on our website, we have trips and ways to get involved with our citizen science programs, where you can actually help contribute to some of our efforts on our science stewardship and restoration team. So that's just really fun to be able to contribute to a larger project. And then, with our policy and advocacy things, we're challenging an open pit mine in the Green River right outside of Mount St. Helens. And so just being aware of, big impacts like that, an open pit mine could be devastating to that area. So just trying to be aware of what's going on in the forest and supporting local groups like us so we can speak for the landscape and to protect it for the long term. So just being aware and being involved.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Jared, how can we find you?
Yeah, the Mount St. Helens Institute is active on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find all those links on our website. It's mshinstitute.org. And right now we're just about to launch our Volcano Naturalist program, which is a great thing where if you enjoyed this and you want to learn more about the region, the culture, the history, you can sign up for that, and it will be an online class. We're looking at bringing in-person programs back, and we're not sure about our youth programs. Right now, we are launching a curriculum about sediment on the move, and it's a really cool program our education team put together where fourth graders get to act like
city council members and argue about stuff. It's great. It's yeah. So yeah, check us out, mshinstitute.org. There's something for learners of all ages.
Oh, I love that. And I'll pitch our film, darkdividefilm.com. And, you know, I just want to say thank you to each of you. I've enjoyed it so much spending this time with you. And I want to do a collective breath because we don't have time for ceremony. We're going to go into this thing, but let's do a breath together. Here we go. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And from the bottom of my heart, and I think I speak for all the audience members too, Lim Wado, thank you for all that you're doing and for your voice and for how you've given your lives to protecting our natural world. We really do love you and appreciate all that you're doing. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night and enjoy the video. Recreate responsibly.
Yes.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Kimberly.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Everybody.
Night.
Good night.
When it's warm weather, everyone has plans for out of doors. It's easy to have fun outside, and being safe is part of having fun anywhere.
I mean, you should not do this right now. That trail's no joke.
The bears have slept awful long. They're gonna be extra hungry.
I'll be fine.
Safe habits mean more fun.
Be prepared for anything and everything. If you aren't ready for it, you're going to have more than your share of sore muscles, aching feet, and awkwardness.
Playing safe is a good habit to learn.
Next time, string your pack from some branches so the bears can't get to it.
No one told me that.
When the wheel don't